We now bring you our first interview on Sunday Live this evening. As a lawyer and former ambassador, she started her own law practice when she was only 23 and made history as the first woman to become the chairperson of the Law Society of Kenya. She's made history twice, actually, and she joins us now in studio. I'm talking about the Cabinet Secretary for the Ministry of Defense, Rachael Omamo. Thank you so much for coming and joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, this is your first TV interview, I believe. Where have you been?
In Kenya, working very hard.
Okay. Why did you choose perhaps not to appear on TV earlier?
I don't think it was a deliberate choice. For me, I was interested in gaining a very deep understanding of our ministry, understanding the military, understanding the regional issues, understanding the ebb and flow of the docket. I wanted to engage deeply with the people I worked with, to gain their trust, to gain their support, and to be able to discharge my duties effectively. One thing we must understand, though, about the Ministry of Defense is that it's not identical with every other ministry. We deal with very sensitive issues, very confidential issues that go to the security of the state. So consequently, in our dealings with the public, there's an obligation on us to exercise restraint, to act with discretion, so that we are able to protect your interests and mine.
All right. So it's been 1 year now.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your reflections on your tenure as the Cabinet Secretary for this ministry, which you've already described as very sensitive. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it's been an astonishing experience. I'm enjoying it tremendously. I am very, very privileged to work with excellent gentlemen in the military. They're extremely courteous, extremely professional, extremely disciplined. It's been a joy to work with them. I've grown a lot. I've gained comprehension of very many issues within the region, many issues within our country. And for me, it's been a blessing and a privilege to work in this role. Yeah.
As you've mentioned, you've worked with some great gentlemen. It's certainly a predominantly male-dominated field, and yet you come in. Do you feel as though this is a reflection on your abilities, or is it perhaps the changing way that we're thinking in society for a woman to be able to take up the helm of this ministry?
I think my appointment goes to His Excellency's vision about the place of women in society. He has a very strong vision for women. He has been willing to place women in places of responsibility, places of decision making throughout government. Within our own cabinet, there are women who are carrying out onerous responsibilities. So it's more a reflection, I think, on him. After all, he was the appointing authority. It's a reflection also of the same attitude that the deputy president has with regard to women. So we live and work in circumstances where we are appreciated, where our value is recognized. So for me as an individual, it was a great honor to be asked to take charge of this ministry and to do a pioneering surgeon through this ministry, given that it had been dominated by men before. So I'm comfortable working within my ministry. I think I've established a fairly good working relationship with the military. I'm also not alone in my ministry as a woman. As you know, my permanent secretary, who is a first-class authority on defense matters, is also working with me in the ministry. So there are two of us, and it's an extremely exciting role. You're in good company.
Yeah. How, though, do the men interact with you, would you say? You've mentioned the fact that you do get support, but how do they interact with you on a day-to-day basis? Is there any intimidation on their part, for instance?
I don't think so, and I don't experience that. When I went to the ministry, I was very clear in my mind that I was going to have a professional relationship with the generals in the ministry, with everyone else in the ministry. So I respect their role and they respect mine. We don't always agree on everything, but generally Ours is a professional relationship, and that's the way I want to keep it.
Okay.
Yeah.
To what extent has being minister in a highly sensitive docket changed your daily life, your day-to-day routine?
Well, clearly it's a sensitive document, a sensitive docket. Of course, you have restrictions in your lifestyle. You can't go where you went before. You have to have a lot of security, and so there are those constraints. But I'm lucky in many ways that I enjoy being at home. I enjoy being with my family. I enjoy being with my close circle of friends. So I don't feel as restricted as somebody who had a much more robust and energetic social life would have.
Okay.
Yes.
So either way, all is good. That said, though, you came into government, and it was baptism by fire in the sense of a lot of the security threats that then erupted. For instance, Westgate, for example. Tell us about that experience in terms of how the news reached you and what you did thereafter.
Well, Westgate was a difficult situation for all Kenyans, for those who were harmed and hurt in the process, for the security forces who had to go in there and confront the terrorists. It was a difficult situation for all of us. My view is that I engaged in the process as a Minister of Defense. I did not engage as the CDF of the Defense Forces. I didn't engage in it as an operational expert. As a Minister of Defense, your duty is to ensure that the operation fell within the purview of our policy direction, fell within the purview of the Constitution. That was my specific role, to ensure that that was done, to ensure that the operation was within the Kenya Defense Forces' mandate. So throughout the operation, of course, you engaged in the decision making, you engaged in reflection, you engaged in the briefings. You operated, this was a multi-agency operation involving very many arms of government. And as the Ministry of Defense, of course, we supported Kenya Defense Forces and our very gallant soldiers who went in there and sorted out the situation.
And while the various authorities came on air and were speaking, for example, you appear to remain largely absent in terms of giving any brief or giving your thoughts on exactly what was going on. Why is that? Why did you appear to be largely absent from our screens?
Well, I wasn't largely absent from your screens. I attended every single press conference, and I'm a big girl. So if you didn't see me, there's something wrong with your eyes.
Not in that way. You know what I mean.
So, on a serious note, Westgate wasn't a joke. It was a serious emergency situation, and it involved lots of agencies. So as a government, we had to make a decision about how we were going to articulate our message. And we didn't want discordant message. We didn't want everybody talking. We wanted to be able to deal with the situation in a sensible and structured way. And therefore we chose to speak through one spokesman. And that spokesman was the Minister of Interior. We supported him throughout the process because we believe in collective responsibility. It wasn't a choice to remain silent. It wasn't my intention to appear as if I was disengaged from the process. But I think we had to make a decision. And you see, in situations like this, there's so many voices. There are people who are coming up with theories on social media. There's the print media. There are people like you. There are many voices. And so we had to be able to ensure that the government's position was made clear. So that is why I took that position. And I think it was the right decision.
Okay. Yes. And still looking at the command structure with regards to how the Westgate attack was handled, many would say it wasn't clear. There appeared to be different parties doing various things. The communication was changing every so often. In hindsight, would you have done anything differently, perhaps, in that situation?
I think the challenge we have is that we live in a world of the 5-second soundbite. We live in a world of Twitter, We live in a world of social media. We live in a world where people are hungry for information and people communicate faster. I think the challenge was for us in that situation was the need for information to be communicated faster and regularly. Unfortunately for us, that's not how operations take place. They sometimes take longer than you would wish. There's sometimes nothing very new to report, but at the same time the public are demanding more information. We have reflected on our communication policy as government, and there's a feeling that in future we need to have a media center where we will be able to communicate much more freely and quicker with the media. I think that's a good thing, but I think we must also remember that as government communicates, we have to take into account issues that you wouldn't take into account, issues that the fellow at home on his computer won't take into account. We have to ensure that we're not giving the terrorists free airtime. We have to ensure that we're not giving away vital information that would interfere with investigations. So we're a little bit more measured, a little bit boring, perhaps, for the average viewer. But that's the way we have to deal with information in a crisis. We have to be more measured and a lot more responsible about what we are saying.
Okay. Well, we'll take a short break and come right back with the Cabinet Secretary in the Ministry of Defense, that's Rachael Omamo, and answer more questions on matter security in the country. We'll still take your feedback and views as well. Use the hashtag Sunday Live on Twitter or SMS us on 22422. We're back right after this break.